Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of New Review. Today I wanted to take a look at the Depeche Mode Songs of Faith and Devotion, the 12-inch singles box set. So for those of you who are not familiar with this series by Depeche Mode, over the last few years they've been reissuing box sets collecting all of their original 12-inch singles, album by album. So first, Speak and Spell, A Broken Frame, Construction Time Again, Some Great Reward, Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, Violator, and now the 8th box set, Songs of Faith and Devotion. Now, I haven't purchased any of the previous box sets for two reasons. The first reason being that I already have pretty much all of the 12-inch singles that have been included in all of the box sets. Save for the Violator one, there's still a couple versions that I'm missing, particularly a different version of the Enjoy the Silence single, Policy of Truth, and I think two versions of World in My Eyes that I'm missing. But the second reason being that even the ones that I am missing aren't particularly expensive to pick up used on the secondary market. Whereas with Songs of Faith and Devotion, and this is one of the reasons why I was really looking forward to this box set, for whatever reason, all of the singles from this album used are upwards generally of 30, 45, even upwards of $100 in some cases, like with the limited versions, particularly of In Your Room and Condemnation. So I was very much looking forward to this box set because it was a more price-conscious way of me to get all of these singles. And I know that there is an argument to be made about original pressings versus repressings, X and Y, all of that stuff. For me, I will do usually whatever I can to get an original pressing of a single or an album or what have you, unless it is not economically feasible for me. So, for instance, I figured that for a little over $150, I could get all 8 of these singles instead of spending $150 on one of them used, where I run a risk of the actual record itself possibly not being in pristine condition, or possibly issues with the sleeve, maybe tears on the spine, etc. So that's how I justified it for me. Now, something that Depeche Mode is doing with these box sets is that they are focusing on recreating the original jackets as accurately as possible, as well as remastering all of the songs from the original sources. Now, I can't say exactly what the sources are for these remixes, just because with all of their more recent albums and remixes, I'm sure that they're all done digitally, but since this was in still the early days of digital recording, I'm not sure exactly what the sources for these are, but regardless, they are remastered from the original sources. So I have peeled off, well, I didn't even peel off, it just came off. This is the original sheet on the back of it with the pictures of what all it includes. I assume that that's just there for if you're browsing in your local record store. That gives a nice overview of what all is included in the box set. The track listing is included on the back of it as well underneath that. Also included, and I have yet to hang this up. I'm not sure if I'm going to hang this up. It is a replica original single poster for the Walking in My Shoes single. Trying not to get that reflected in the light there. Yeah. There's also a download card inside for all of the singles as well, if you want to, for instance, listen to it on your phone or mobile device or a computer, whatever. So let's get into the singles themselves. First up is the standard issue of the I Feel You single. The track list on A side is I Feel You Throb Mix, I Feel You 7-inch Mix, and on the B side is I Feel You Babylon Mix, and the song One Caress, which is an album track that, for whatever reason, ended up on the B side. I'm going to be honest with you. If I were to rank all these individual 8 singles just by what's included on the track list, this would probably be my number 1. I think that I Feel You is an incredibly strong song, particularly an incredibly strong opener. For Songs of Faith and Devotion, I really do feel that it gives a great example of what the album is going to sound like. Um, the Throb mix, I think, is practically an extended 12-inch mix. I really enjoy that remix. Um, I Feel You Babylon mix is fine. I don't particularly hate it. I think it is one of the better remixes from around this period. But for me, the Throb mix and One Caress really do make this. The 7-inch mix is perfectly fine, but I would just listen to the album version instead, personally. But I mean, 3 of the 4 songs on here, I would definitely give a 5 out of 5 to. The Babylon mix, probably a 4 out of 5. It's still very, very good. I'm just going to set that down there. Oh, and here's the back. You have Dave standing up against a wall. Yeah, really great photography and artwork in all of these. Next is the limited version of the I Feel You single. And then this is actually a pretty nifty gatefold. So in here we have a picture of the entire band right there. I really love that image. And then over here we have Alan and Dave standing alone. This is it folded out, by the way. So instead of like the original where you had the 4 images, what would you call these? Icons? I know that each one is supposed to represent a different member of the band. I'm just not sure what verbiage to attach to them. But yeah, so here they're side by side. Now this was the limited version of the single at the time of its release. Track listing is, now these are all going to be remixes of I Feel You, so I'm not going to say I Feel You, I'm just going to say the remixes. There is the Life's Too Short mix and the Swamp mix on the A side, and then the B side has the Renegade Soundwave Afghan Surgery mix and the Helmet at the Helm mix. Both the ones on the A side are remixed by Brian Eno. I'm sure that if you watch these videos, you know who Brian Eno is. And then the third and fourth remixes on here were done by Danny Briotet and Mark Stent. All are solid remixes. None of them are particularly memorable for me in the sense that like they don't get stuck in my head like some of the other remixes do, like the Throb mix does. It's still a very solid single though. Yeah, and I do think that all 4 remixes are pretty good. I generally though it's not that I'm not a fan, but I feel like listening to 4 remixes of the same song all in one go can be a little bit of overkill. But I mean, I do have to say, and I would argue that this was the last album where this was the case, but all of the remixes are good to great. So if I say, oh, I'm not too big on this, it still means it's at least 3.5 out of 5 for me. Up next is the second single from the album, also the second song on the album, Walking in My Shoes. Try not to get that halo of the ring light right there. There we go. This has a glossed cover, which I think is phenomenal. And then on the back, you have the smaller version, which was used, I believe, as the CD single. So here we have the Walking in My Shoes Grungy Gonads mix. I love that title. And then Walking in My Shoes 7-inch. And then on the B side, the 7-inch mix and the slow slide mix of My Joy. Now there are 2 official B-sides from this album, which are My Joy and Death's Door. Of the 2 of them, My Joy I'm sorry, I do feel is the weaker of the two. And now when I say weaker, again, it's like apples and oranges. I still like both of them. I will say that the 7-inch mix to me is the preferred version. I don't think that the slow slide mix of it does anything particularly memorable with it. And then as for the Walking in My Shoes remixes on here, the 7-inch mix, is basically a shortened version. It's fine. The Grungy Gonads mix I do enjoy. Um, yeah, overall pretty solid, this one. And then up next is the limited one with, again, this more glossed over artwork. And just like the limited version of I Feel You, this is also a gatefold. So we have the two alternate angles of that bird-headed woman on the back, just black, the track listing. And just like with the I Feel You Limited, these are all remixes just of Walking in My Shoes. You have the extended 12-inch mix, the random carpet mix, the, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, the anandamidic mix, and then the ambient whale mix. Now, ambient whale mix pretty much speaks for itself. It just sounds like a whale throughout the whole thing. It's fine. Um, it's not my favorite. I actually really enjoy the extended 12-inch version on here. There's some, I don't want to say like DJ noises, but there's some of those like, you know how in the early 90s, electronic music, there'd be some kind of like hype sound? It has that going on through it. The same sound would kind of show up on Get Right With Me on the album. But yeah, I just think it's a very enjoyable remix. Also, the actual sleeve for the inner sleeve is yet another image of the bird-headed woman. I just love this iconography. I really do think that this is a very striking image. If you've seen the music video, you know what I mean. Yeah, the random carpet mix and the anandamidic mix are fine. Overall, though, I really do think that the extended 12-inch mix on there is the highlight of those particular four remixes. Now, from Walking in My Shoes, we then get the third single from the album, which is Condemnation. Now, this has the exclusive Condemnation Paris mix, which has added backing vocals, added female backing vocals, I should say. On the back of here, we have the song lyrics of the song written down there in the center. Also on here, we have Death's Door Jazz Mix, and then 3 remixes of the song Rush. We have the Spiritual Guidance Mix, the Amyl Nitrate Mix, which is instrumental, and then the Wild Planet Mix, which has vocals. Also on the inner sleeve on here, we just have Dave standing in front of, or is it behind, the image of the praying hands. Personally, I think that this is a very solid single on here. Possibly my second favorite after the I Feel You one. I think that the Paris mix of Condemnation is a superior version than the version that is on the album. The jazz mix of Death's Door is just phenomenal. I think that Death's Door truly is one of their great B-sides. And then all 3 remixes of Rush are incredibly solid. Rush is a song that I think could have been a single. If for whatever reason they had to release a 5th one from the album, it could have been that one. And yeah, all 3 of the remixes on here, I think, do a really great job. Next is the limited version of Condemnation. On the spine, it's just called Depeche Mode Live. And reason for that is because these are all going to be live songs. Now, like the other 2 limited ones, it is gatefold, so we have live images of the band from the Songs of Faith and Devotion tour, otherwise known as the Devotional Tour. On the back, we have an image of Martin there standing on top of that platform. 4 songs on here. The A side is Condemnation and Personal Jesus. The B side is Enjoy the Silence and Halo. Honestly, I think that the performances here are fine. None of them really jump out to me, unfortunately. I know that a lot of Depeche Mode fans who saw them at this time and who still have seen them since claim that Devotional was one of, if not their favorite tour by the band. But it possibly just because Personal Jesus and Enjoy the Silence, I've heard those songs so much. There's not really anything radically different about these live versions, and I don't think that the performances of them are particularly grabbing. But I will say that the live version of Halo on here, phenomenal. Absolutely great performance of Halo. Um, yeah, I believe that the inner sleeve on this one, yeah, it's just black on one side, and then you have the same image of the praying hands on the other. Overall, solid one, but not necessarily one that I grab for if I'm going to listen to any of these 8 singles. Speaking of the 8 singles, let's go with the last two, which is the 4th single from the album, In Your Room. This is the standard 12-inch version of it, not the limited. With this one and the next one, both inner sleeves are just standard black. On here, the A side is the Zephyr mix, Apex mix, and the Jeep Rock mix of In Your Room. The B side is the Adrenaline mix of Higher Love, and then the extended Zephyr mix of In Your Room. Honestly, this one's also, this one might round up my top 3 of these 8, if I were going to rank them. Um, for a while, the Zephyr mix was my preferred version of listening to In Your Room. Lately, especially after having seen them live on the Spirit Tour, where they did perform the original album version of In Your Room live, um, since then, I've warmed up a lot to the album version to the point where it might be in my top 3 or 5 Depeche Mode songs. But I do think that the Zephyr mix and the extended Zephyr mix are still phenomenal remixes by Butch Vig, which I didn't know until somewhat recently. The other 2 remixes of In Your Room, the Apex mix and the Jeep Rock mix, are fine. The Adrenaline mix of Higher Love, I think, is actually really great, although it does sound sometimes like the tempo of the instrumental is a little bit different from the tempo of the vocals, especially at parts where the vocals first come in. It does feel a little bit, it doesn't feel even to me, if that makes sense. But yeah, solid remix. Um, it is definitely less atmospheric and anthemic than the version on the album. I still very much enjoy it though. I think that this is a very solid 12-inch. And then the last one is the limited version of In Your Room. Now, when I was talking about how some of these original singles go for upwards of $150, I was particularly talking about this one here. This is not a cheap record to come by in its original pressing. Now, like the limited version of Condemnation, this is entirely live recordings. So on the A side, we have In Your Room, Policy of Truth, and World in My Eyes. And on the B side, we have Fly on the Windscreen, Never Let Me Down Again, and Death's Door. For me, the 2 songs on here, well, let me rephrase that. The 3 songs on here that I think really shine are going to be In Your Room, Fly on the Windscreen. I mean, the version of Fly on the Windscreen here, I might prefer to the album version on Black Celebration. I love it. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And then the live version of Death's Door. The live version of Death's Door I think is great. It's just Alan on piano, Martin singing, and then they have the female backing vocalist that they had on this tour singing with him. And I also think it's very fitting that, this is the last Depeche Mode release where Alan Wilder was still a member of the band. So I do think it's fitting in a way that the last song on the last release, all the instrumentation is essentially being just done by him on a piano. I think it's such a beautiful version of the song. I really do wish that it was one that they still played live, although I do understand that Depeche Mode has kind of an aversion to playing the B-sides. Um, I know that a couple of tours ago they finally did play But Not Tonight live, which is a whole other story. But yeah, I can't really think of them playing any of the B-sides from their last few albums live. But yeah, honestly, just like with the last one, I mean, this might also be a contender for my top three of the eight singles in here. I just think that the live recordings on here, I think the performances are better than on the Condemnation single. It also helps that there's more on here and that it's not just, like on the Condemnation one, it's just one song from Songs of Faith and Devotion and three from Violator. Here we have, you know, two from Violator, one from Songs of Faith and Devotion, one from Black Celebration, one from Music for the Masses, and then a B-side. So there's a little bit more variation on here. I also will say that listening to this and the Limited Condemnation single, these are kind of as close as I think we're going to get to a vinyl reissue of anything from the devotional tour. I know that also they released the Songs of Faith and Devotion live album, but it's never been reissued. Original pressing goes for upwards of $250. So I think that pairing that, maybe on like Apple Music with, the songs from those two singles could give you more of a, complete devotional live experience. Just a thought, just an idea. Um, so that is all of the contents of this box set. Now, if you twisted my arm before I really dived into this, um, I would say the album, or how would I phrase this? Like if I were to listen to all these box sets that they've released, these singles box sets, and lump them together, before I really sat down and deep dived and digested all of this, I would say, top three would probably be, Black Celebration, maybe Some Great Reward, and Violator. As far as, if you were to count everything on those 12-inch singles, all the remixes, all the B-sides, all the live versions, all the everythings. But really deep diving into here, I mean, like if Black Celebration, if all those singles are number one, this is a really close number two. I mean, like I said, all of the 12 inches on here, there's nothing that I would really take out. I think that this really was the last album where all of the remixes were good, if not great. All of the B-sides were good, if not great. Um, Maybe Ultra also, as far as the B-sides go. But I would say everything since then, there's a reason why some of those B-sides are B-sides. But Depeche Mode, I would say up to and including the Ultra album, always released good, if not great, B-sides, and that's especially apparent here. You have My Joy, which is a really good song, and then you have Death's Door, which is a phenomenal song. One of the best songs that Martin sings lead on, hands down. Um, Favorite remixes on here, I'd say the Throb mix of I Feel You, the extended 12-inch mix of Walking in My Shoes, the Paris mix of Condemnation, and then either the standard or the extended Zephyr mixes of In Your Room. I think that each song has a great, great remix that overshadows the other ones, and those four that I just mentioned are them. As far as a rating goes, I mean, you have the packaging, you have the audio quality, you have the actual songs themselves. I think everything on here just works. Um, if you're hesitant about dropping $150, $170 on this box set, I would argue that you're getting your money's worth and more, especially if you don't have any of these singles. Um, Especially if, Songs of Faith and Devotion is an album that you love, and maybe you're not familiar yet with some of the band's remixes and B-sides and live versions and things like that. I can't think of a reason not to throw myself behind a very high recommendation for this. So for that, I would give this I would give this a 10 out of 10. I think that it's perfect across the board. I don't think that there's any part of here that is lacking or any part of here where they missed the mark. Everything in here, I mean, they just got it right. And yeah, so for that, I would give this a completely perfect score. And that's my review of Depeche Mode, Songs of Faith and Devotion, the 12-inch singles box set. What do you think? Do you agree that it is worth the money? Do you disagree? Do you think it is worth too much money? Tell me your thoughts below in the comments. I would love to read them. I really do enjoy all the feedback. I try to respond to as many comments as I can. I really love having discussions with fans of the different bands and artists that I cover on here. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all the feedback, all the comments. Until next time, this is Tyler King with New Review. I will see you next time.